So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Villains, and I hope everybody has had a fantastic last few days. I know that the sun has been shining here in Ireland, and myself and Paddy, you might see it here. I've got a bit of sunburn on my forehead, but myself and Paddy have been in soaking up the sun here. I hope everybody is recovered after the weekend, after that unfortunate result for England against Italy in a Euro 2020 final. And that's really what we're going to chat about today. We're going to have a look back at the Aston Villa, how Aston Villa fared, I suppose, in Euro 2020 across all the teams and all the players that played. We're going to have a little look at Copa America as well and just talk a small bit about that, because we don't want that to be the poor relation either, considering we had representation there as well. And we'll talk about other little bits and pieces and snippets that are coming up, that we feel are coming up, should I say, over the next few weeks. But the first question, as always, on the podcast is, how the hell are you doing, Paddy?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I'm grand. I'm suffering a small bit, as I say, I got burnt. You know, when I say it was sunny, it wasn't tremendously sunny. Like, I just have the Irish predisposition to like factor 90.
That's what happens, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like we're not built for I suppose, for a race of people that spent a lot of the time working outside in the past. We're not very good at taking the sun, you know. It never worked out that way, did it?
No, it didn't. But look, we get so little of it, we may as well just enjoy it and stop giving out about it.
Absolutely, 100%. You said it, Paddy. That's exactly it. Every time I start giving out about the sun, please feel free to put me back in my box. But talking about sun and sunshine and you know, I suppose good feelings, good vibes and all that kind of stuff. Euro 2020 has come and gone, Paddy, and we didn't talk an awful lot about it, I suppose, really, because look, we didn't really have a dog in the fight from the standpoint of our little old nation. As I say, we spend a lot of time working outside. That's all. A lot of our guys were good for at the moment. Certainly, they were good for digging pitches. Never mind playing on them this year. But that's a story for a complete other day. But you know, Euro 2020 has just finished up. Obviously, we've had representation at the competition. Before we start talking about the Villa, I suppose the Villa representation, what were your overall feelings on the whole tournament? How it went off? You know, being played in different cities and so on. You know, did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the fact that there was football on for the last 5 weeks?
I'm not going to lie. I struggled to get into it, and I think the reason I struggled to get into it is that we've had no break. We've had non-stop football since Project Lockdown or Project Restart last year, and I kind of just found myself struggling to watch it. Watched all the England games, watched all the big games that you know were about, but real life started to get back to normal here during Euro 2020, and we're you know, I'm playing taxi, bringing my son to training every night and doing all that kind of stuff. So it kind of interrupted the viewing, let's say. And then, of course, we can finally leave our county and do some traveling. So I did a bit of camping during the Euros. So for that reason, I missed a good bit of it. But, you know, even while I was camping, I managed to watch England-Ukraine in the tent on my iPad. So
you got the goal fest.
That's it. We got to, you know, I didn't miss out on any important games, but I didn't go out of my way to watch most of it. And, you know, I think I genuinely feel that's because I'm just inundated with football for well over a year, and there's been no let up. And it's been constant because, you know, when you think of it, you go back 3 or 4 months, you watch 5 or 6 matches every weekend. And the weather's been so bad, you were watching them because you had nothing else to do. You couldn't go out, you couldn't do anything. So kind of had just a little bit of a break from it. But the most important thing is Villa are back very, very soon, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Exactly, yeah. And before we kind of leave the Euro 2020 piece, that's something I don't have down on my rundown sheet, is the pre-season stuff. So I'm feverishly here trying to add it as we speak, but the people who are listening will never know that, Paddy. That can be our little secret. But of course, look, Aston Villa, and keep me honest with this because I know I'm going to forget one or two people, but Aston Villa did have some representation, as we say. Obviously, we had representation throughout within the English team in the form of Jack Grealish and Tyrone Mings. And we will get back and we will speak about those. And I think that I think there is a lot to be spoken about those. But obviously, we've had Lovre Kalinic as well being named in the Croatian side or the Croatian in the Croatian squad, team, his squad, and he's actually left the club during the week, gone on loan to Hajduk Split, and seems to be a move that he certainly wanted, Hajduk wanted, and Aston Villa are just happy, I suppose, to kind of get him playing time, considering he still has 2 years left after this year on his deal. It's a quite a strange one.
I think it's 2 years from now.
2 years from now, maybe, yeah.
So he'll have 1 year at the end of this one, and I think honestly he knows himself he's going to struggle to get into this team. So if he's any hopes of regaining his international place, he should probably get back and play with Split full time. So that's probably what he's thinking. That's what we're thinking. It just never happened for him at the club, I don't think. So unfortunate. I had big hopes from when he came in. Big lad, big imposing goalkeeper, what you'd like to see. Just never happened for him.
No, absolutely. And one of Dean Smith's first signings, if not his very first signing as well. And or maybe the very first signing we had when Dean Smith was manager. That might even be I suppose a truer reflection of it. I don't know whether he was a Smith signing, because there was a times there where Smith went out of his way not to play him, and then ultimately ended up bringing in players, other players in to play goalkeeper as well. But like Lovre Kalinic didn't see any game time in the Euros this year, but Aston Villa representation, very, very important, to have that and to have it across the spectrum, I suppose, of the teams. And obviously, John McGinn was in there for Scotland. Obviously, Scotland being drawn in the same group as England spiced that one up a small bit. And that Scottish team, things didn't really happen for them at all during the course of the championship. But did you get to see any of John McGinn, and what were your thoughts of him?
I did. I saw all the Scottish games as well. My son is a big John McGinn fan, so everything was built around the Scotland games for him. They never got going. The Scotland-England game, funnily enough, I really enjoyed for a 0-0 draw. I thought it was a really good game of tactical chess, and no team capable of breaking it down. But it was a game that I enjoyed watching. They just went out with a whimper in the end, unfortunately. Just lack of just toothless up front, really. I think the strikers they had weren't up to the fight, and that ultimately cost them. If they'd have got a win in one of the games, it probably would have changed everything, and they would have ended up getting through, probably in the third place position. But it just didn't happen for them. They just really toothless.
Yeah, their cup final was always going to be the game against England. And that's not a derogatory thing to say at all, because look, how many times have Ireland across the years in whatever sport, whatever code you want to play England in, whatever time has that been our cup final? And you even go back to go back through the years when we've played England, and we've been drawn with England in tournaments as well. There was songs sang who put the ball in England net. Bray Houghton has never had to put his hand in his pocket in Ireland since, little things like that. But and maybe that can kind of take the spark out of things afterwards as well, that you get yourself so high for those games, and then maybe you just fall flat in the rest of them that's
how I felt in the third game. Then they were very flat. They showed signs in the first game, yet they were undone by a worldly finish that ultimately killed them off. But they showed great promise in that game, and I thought in the third game they just failed to get up for it. And you're right, it is obviously of the neighbouring countries. England are the biggest population, the biggest landmass.
So far ahead as well.
Yeah, they're so far ahead in so many ways, and the fact that they're seeded first as well makes life a whole lot easier. Not that I'm making any excuses. If you're good enough, you'll be seeded first, and Absolutely. They're good enough. And I felt they failed to match that performance in the third game, and that ultimately saw Scotland undone. And that was the end for John McGinn. And me, being the selfish man that I am, was happy to see him get a rest. They were never going to progress any further. If they did finish third, it just would have added maybe another 3 or 4 days onto John McGinn being away from Bodymore Heath. So,
and you know what? That's important. I suppose this isn't Aston Villa podcast, and we don't have any loyalties to the international side of the game. And in fairness, to be honest with you, we've actually been quite critical of it, regardless of who's been playing, whether it's been Ireland or whoever, just within the pandemic situation we've been in. But John McGinn, of all the players that Aston Villa have, because of his effervescence, his running, his industry around the field, he does need a break. He didn't really get a massive break first season in the Premier League. Came in, obviously it was abridged and there was a bit of a break, but then there was COVID and there was a COVID outbreak. So the 2 seasons almost ran back to back last year. Then there was a COVID outbreak mid-season. So we kind of, from a selfish Aston Villa point of view, getting somebody like John McGinn, whose game is really predicated on never give up. That's what it's predicated on, and getting him a small bit more of a break. Although he didn't really take too much of a break, because 6 days after Scotland were knocked out, himself and Conor Horan were training together, and they looked like they were doing some sort of a bleep test or some sort of a Bronco run. Anyway, when I was watching them on Instagram, so I was like, God, 6 days of a rest. Maybe he's just completely built different to me. I'd need about 3 weeks after that.
That's the thing. You just you look around. From a selfish point of view, Jack didn't see much game time as such. Tyrone Mings did very well in the first couple of games, but then I think he came on sub in the third game for Harry Maguire, or was it the fourth game? But again, not too much game time in the last 2 weeks. So from a selfish point of view, they should be fresh enough. They'll enjoy their break. They'll probably miss some of the pre-season games, and we'll probably see them back towards the end of July. Not much of a break for them. Jack has had a break with his injury before the Euros, so you would hope he would be a little bit fresh coming back into the pre-season. And obviously, Tyrone is probably going to be the tiredest of who he had at the Euros, and not had much of a break. And it's been a strange kind of break as well. And you mentioned international football. It's been a very difficult year for international football. Yeah. Like we've seen, possibly without making up excuses, we weren't good enough, but we've seen Ireland crash out of the Euros and probably have no chance at the World Cup, all because of COVID restrictions and losing players and stuff like that. So it's been a really weird year, and I found it really hard to get up for any of the international games. There's people traveling all over Europe. For that reason alone, I don't see any reason why they just didn't move the games to the UK or one of the countries that could facilitate fans.
And I think that's actually an interesting point, Paddy, because that's a plus that we have of the players that we've just mentioned there. McGinn played his games, in the majority of his games anyway in the UK. I don't know, was one of them outside of the UK. And then England, of course, obviously played every game bar that game in Rome, in the UK as well. So lack of travel means lack of possibility. Well, I know that you'd hope they're still in our bubbles and so on. I know the coronavirus cases are on the up in the UK, but lack of travel, lack of international travel, and being in an airplane, you would think would help decrease the amount. But it was just
you looked at what happened just before the tournament. Scotland travelled to bloody Portugal to play a game. You're just shaking your head, going, "What?"
And they got COVID. There was a COVID outbreak.
Yeah. Like that could hinder their progression, and can put their training out of kilter. There's people missing it from their tactical sessions. It's just a strange world, and they didn't have any other games outside the UK. They had 2 in Hampden and 1 in Wembley, so there's little enough travel there. So John McGinn should be fresh enough, and no travel worries there. Don't know where he's gone on holidays. I think it's a big secret. And
he went down to
Bandon to run with Conor Horan. Yeah, I know there's a big story wondering where Jack went on his holidays today. I'm sure we'll find out eventually on Instagram or whatever. But I hope he's resting up on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean with no people around him and no
A
hope
million miles away from a photographer and from a
and
journalist who wants to shop and COVID. Exactly. Look, I think it would be remiss not to discuss the penalty shootout at the weekend, Paddy, just from the point of view, and we're not going to go into this because we don't really have, as I said, we've no dog in this fight. We don't really have anything major to offer on this. It's just specifically because I feel that I feel personally like we were interjected into this when Roy Keane opened up his mouth because of our absolute love, as everybody knows, for Roy Keane. And by the word love, I mean not love. I'm not going to say the word hate, but because of the type of man and the type of shyster that Roy Keane actually is. And then he opened up his mouth and started spouting absolute nonsense, I think, after the game. I felt I have to bring this up. Look, the penalty shootout didn't go England's way. I actually fully expected England to win that game. I fully expected England to win the penalty shootout when the penalties were going on. My commiserations to absolutely every English fan that's listening to this game. My biggest problem here, and this is what we want to speak about, is the obvious piece whereby people almost wanted to shift the blame onto the likes of Raheem Sterling and Jack Grealish, which I thought was pretty cowardly from punditry, from the punditry point of view. It was, and you know, from a journalistic point of view, from anybody who said it, because it just really was. You know, the manager makes the decision. They wanted to deflect the blame from the manager, or they wanted to deflect the blame from everybody else, and then they put it on two other people, two people that they know will get clicks because two of the biggest lightning rods in that team are Raheem Sterling and Jack Grealish. Paddy, what's your views on that?
Well, first of all, I found it an incredible watch. I'm on the other side of that coin. I expected Italy to win the game, and when it went to penalties, I expected them to win the penalties, and that's no slight on the England team. I just thought Italy were a joy to watch in the games I watched them throughout the tournament. I think they looked like the most explosive team in the tournament. They missed Spinazzola in the final. I thought he was the player of the tournament.
That's why I thought England would win, because Emerson was like a spare plum out there. He was. I just think he's not a player at all.
Yeah, he was poor. He was poor early in the game. He grew into the game, in fairness to him. But I actually found the penalties and watching the BBC coverage of it, and the very first person you see when it goes to penalties is Prince William with his 5 fingers out, and he's pointing, picking his 5 players. And as you go around the stadium, everybody's got their hand out, and you know,
isn't it? Yeah.
You look at the famous people in the crowd, and you could see that the 5 players are already picked, because Gareth Southgate two
he eyeballs him. He goes 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1, doesn't he? Like he's not deviating from who he goes to. Like.
And you mentioned Mr. Keane, who you don't hate. I hate him. I can't stand him. I can't stand the man. I'm not going to go off on a rant about him, but he is in the position he's in because he will always provide that soundbite to piss people off and make headlines. And the headline wasn't made that Jack Grealish came out and said, well, I would have taken a penalty. That was never going to be a headline, because people don't want to read the truth. They want to read the spin that the likes of Roy Keane, who has a cheek to be commentating on tactics and management because he was useless at both, including his time at Aston Villa. So I have absolutely zero respect for him as a player or as a man. So don't get me started on him. I've already got started. Sorry. So we'll move on.
I've assented to Mr. Keane as well, that I do think it's actually very, very rich that Raymond would lecture I felt that he almost questioned the leadership and the professionalism of Raheem Sterling and Jack Grealish. I think that's a small bit rich from somebody who left down his country. And call it what you want, you can be on his side if the balls weren't it, if there wasn't enough balls in the ball bag or whatever, or the bib smelled like shit or something like that. There were all the excuses they were trying out afterwards. It was an amateur operation. You get on with it, you do it. Ireland had a decent chance in that World Cup. They went and they played Spain, got knocked out on a penalty shootout as well in the World Cup quarter-final. Roy Keane would have made an absolutely huge difference. Could you imagine Ireland getting to a World Cup semi-final, or to, you know, getting look, don't even get me started. But look, I think that's small but rich as well, and it always will be. And he has to live with his decision too. He has to live with his decision. He can't start casting blame.
Yeah. There's a reason these TV companies have them there. So when the video was thrown around the internet by all the usual clickbaits, it was all ITV coverage, and they were delighted with that. And best of luck to them. That's what they decided to do. The minute I saw it was on ITV, I watched it on BBC.
I watched it in RTE.
I watched it on RTE to start with.
But I turned over to BBC just after the penalties because I wanted to get the British view on it, the English view on it, because I felt I genuinely, and look, you can say that I'm pandering, maybe not you, but people listening to this can say I'm pandering to the crowd. I genuinely felt for England in that instance. It's happened so many times, like, you know, I don't delight in anybody losing a penalty shootout. You know, I've had people say to me, you know, God, you must be jumping around the sitting room. Absolutely. And you know, I could, okay, somebody, if you want to do that, that's fine. That's absolutely no problem. But like, I'm going to have to go jump on and do a podcast about Aston Villa, and I'm going to have to cheer these people, you know, for 48 weeks of the year. And I think my
overriding emotion was that I really felt sorry for those three young players who had that put onto their shoulders.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I genuinely thought there was a better selection of 5 penalties that could have been given.
Yeah. And that's
I don't know how true it is. And, you know, I know we've discussed it that Jordan Pickford apparently is a very good penalty taker, and he would have been number 7 before Jack Grealish. Who
was number 6?
Number 6 was, good question.
Probably. Look, there was loads of players there. There was loads of players there as well. But
there were so many attackers on the pitch by the end of the game with the changes. But even at that, I thought the likes of Trippier would have taken a penalty. Very surprised to see him taken off. You know, generally considered a dead ball specialist. Surely you would think he could pick a spot from 12 yards that would deceive any goalkeeper. But, you know, I think the book falls with Gareth on the whole thing. I said it many times during the tournament. Gareth Southgate was either a genius or he was very, very lucky. And I think it was the latter, and his luck ran out in the final in penalties. And, you know, he may prove me wrong. He may go on and become a world-class coach. But that's my overriding feeling on the whole thing. I think he probably did very, very well, and a lot more respect is due than I'm giving him. But I thought there were some very questionable team selections throughout the tournament. But he got the results, and that will be totally forgotten about.
I think Gareth Southgate is. Look, I don't think Gareth Southgate's going to go on and have a fantastic managerial career after this. Not because I don't think he's a good manager, but because I think Gareth Southgate won't want to have a massive managerial career after this. I think he sees it himself that he's hit the zenith of his profession. Oh, yeah. I think he will go, and he will continue to work with the FA in some sort of capacity. I don't see him going back into the rigors or going into the rigors of club management, because I think nothing to be gained for him to do this. Say what you like. Yes, he may have got lucky, but he's got lucky 2 tournaments in a row. And sometimes that's what you need. And sometimes you just need to be the right man in the right place at the right time. And I think he has been. And I think the overarching thing that you will see is that he has brought a togetherness to the team. And I think that is important as well. But I also think that, you know, when you look back at this, that, you know, it's going to be hard to disagree that he's probably the best manager England have had in the last 20 years, you know, and he's not
well. But he's also very, very lucky in that he's dealing with a golden generation of players.
No, that's the thing. I think he's made that team better because he's got a golden generation of individuals, but I think he knows how to use them. And I think that while we don't agree with his team selections, I think they you know, it can be said across the board. Majority of people will question things in his decisions. I think he was able to get an awful lot out of that team, especially defensively. Yes, and you could see that. Then I don't think other managers would have. I can't say that other managers wouldn't have been able to do that, but I think he could be justified in saying that. Listen, I squeezed every last bit out of this team, and the proof is in the pudding. A semi-final and a final. So, like they've had managers like Capello. You know, Capello is going to go down as one of the greatest managers, certainly one of the greatest European managers, maybe in the top 10, you know, and he couldn't get Lampard and Gerrard to play together, whereas Southgate didn't even see that he had to do that. He brought in players and he played them the way they were. And I'm saying this completely out the other side of my mouth because I wanted him to start Grealish, but you see when he starts the game with Grealish, Sancho, Rashford on the bench, and that's the galling part. That's the frustrating part. He has he has a full box of knives, yet he's using the back end of a spoon to cut to butter his bread.
Well, my overriding emotion is that, I know some people coined the phrase "safegate" is what they were calling him, that he played it safe. And, I think when you've got that in your armory, you've got to use it to the best of you can. And I don't believe he did. I think there was occasions there that he could have put teams to the sword. That didn't happen. I think he could have went for Italy and gone for the fact that there was two very, very old centre halves there that would have had a lot on their plate dealing with an effervescent front three. And I think they could have overran them very easily in that game. But the minute the team was picked, I had decided in my head, I said, I don't think England will have enough here.
I've one last question, and we're going to move off England because I didn't even want to speak about go into detail and Southgate. But I think, look, the conversation has gone that way, and I'm happy that we did, because we kind of have, we've similar thought processes. It's been a nice conversation on it. But do you think England? This is going to sound almost like the dad joke of cliches. Did England score too early?
Oh, of course, yeah.
You could almost see that Gareth became withdrawn in the team, and the team just withdrew. But do you think that was on order, or do you think that would have been the plan regardless?
I don't think they ever legislated for scoring that early. Even for 5 minutes after the goal went in, they were still going at the same pace. And I think he struggled to get the word onto the pitch. Hang on, guys, we're 1-0 up here. Calm down. I think there was so much testosterone flowing there. Everybody was just, absolutely flying. And it took about, I think it was about 18 or 19 minutes that I said to, my son who was watching the match with me, I said, they finally calmed down and realised they're 1-0 up here. Because they were just running off pure adrenaline from, a huge rendition of the national anthem and everything else. Yeah. And even after they scored, I felt that the crowd went a bit flat, like as if they were almost shocked at what they were looking at and not quite knowing how to deal with the situation. And, we're probably right to give this the air that it deserves, because, Southgate's a former Villa player.
Yeah, correct.
I had a lot of love for him when he played for Villa. Bit disappointed in him leaving. I thought that we could have built a very strong team at the time and given him another couple of years. But and I don't mean to have a go at him, but we're here to give our opinion, and that's how I felt about his selection throughout the championship.
Absolutely. Well, look, we spoke a good bit there about Jack Grealish, and we all would have liked to, from the selfish point of view, I would love to see him take that fifth penalty, stick it in the back of the net, and have his face everywhere we could. And I joked about it. I don't know, did we joke about it? I joked about it somewhere anyway, whether I was just talking to one of my mates or something, that West Ham say they won the World Cup in '66 because of who scored. We would have been able to say that Aston Villa won the European Championship in 2021. Well, the 2020 European Championship in 21. It would have been the most Aston Villa thing of all time, if that had happened.
Yeah.
But Jack Grealish, obviously, England is done with for the time being. You'd be blown away if he wasn't on the plane to Qatar. But in the meantime, will he be on the plane to Qatar as a Man City player or as an Aston Villa player? Talks re-emerging again there that looks like from the City side seem to be stalking it, the regular heads from the Manchester Evening News and so on like that, and the City Chiefs, and even the Athletic are getting in on it as well, saying it was a done deal for 90 million. I don't know how they've got a bargain. There's 10 million or 15 million gone off the price tag in the space of 3 weeks, but somehow they've got a bargain anyway, according to these outlets. Look into your crystal ball, Paddy. What are we seeing in the next 2 weeks? Because I don't think it's going to go on to the end of the transfer window. I think it's decisions will be made in the next 2 weeks.
I genuinely, and I mean this 100%, I believe that the next breaking news we have from Jack Grealish will be Jack Grealish signing a new contract. That's my belief. I don't believe it's too far away. I don't know whether he's still in the country, whether that can be done now, whether it's already in the process and ready to be done when he comes back to training, whether I don't believe there's any talk to have here. was a very good piece written by Under a Gaslit Lamp about the Milwaukee Bucks and how they built the team around Giannis. And I truly believe that that's what our owners are.
I'm going to stop you mid-flow. I'm not letting you away with just calling him Giannis. You go for the surname.
I'm not even going for the surname. No, I think it's like Kobe Bryant.
I think it is. Yeah,
he didn't make it very easy for us. But anyway, I do believe that that's their business model. We have and that's my gripe with Southgate. I believe Jack Grealish is one of the shining stars in world football. Not just the Premier League, not just Aston Villa. He's a world football star and wasn't utilised properly at the European Championships. And secretly, I'm kind of happy he wasn't, because now it's not like he was player of the tournament. He won the championship for England and everybody wants him. Being totally honest, I don't believe that there's any club in the world other than Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain, maybe, that can afford Jack Grealish. If Jack Grealish was, and I don't believe it's going to be Paris Saint-Germain either. I think it'd be an absolute crazy move to go there. And I believe it's an absolute crazy move to go to Manchester City too. And the reason behind that is, you look at what he's been through in the last 3 weeks sitting on the bench. That will happen at Manchester City. Yeah. He won't play every game. He'll go 2 or 3 weeks without a game. And I think he thrives on being the center of attention and being the best player, that is on display on the pitch. And I think regardless of where he goes in the Premier League, he's going to be one of the best players on the pitch. And I believe he will come back, sign a new contract. His release fee will go up again. And I believe that if we can get into Europe next season, we will see Jack Grealish forever. If we don't get into Europe next season, I will quite happy pat him on the back and say, thank you so much, Jack. You got us back to the promised land. You've led us to, a mid-table finish this year, hopefully an improvement next year. Go spread your wings, do what you got to do, win trophies, win medals, because that's, to me, that's important for footballers. But I guarantee you, for Jack to go and qualify for Europe or a Champions League with Aston Villa would probably mean more than a Premier League medal with Manchester City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think he signs this year. I don't think he's going to. I think no. Next.
I genuinely believe
he's signing. I think it might even be signed already, to be honest with you. There might be something even signed before he went away. Look, we all live with this fever dream that something big happens when there's a release of a new kit, that they release it along with news or a new signing. You never know. It might be, the kit is out, and then you just see the boy from Birmingham, and he just says, oh, by the way, I've signed a new contract as well. Something nice and understated like that, nicely shot video out Marbella or wherever he is. That would be nice. That would be great to see, and it would put a real pep in my step tomorrow.
Yeah, anyway, remember the reaction we had to Tyrone Mings getting off the train in Whitton Station in his having the last time we seen him in Bournemouth Station in his Villa kit.
That was brilliant.
From the final to be in Whitton Station in the new kit for the Premier League last season. Something like that tomorrow would make my year. And would really get the juices flowing ahead of the new season. I don't think it may not be tomorrow. If it is, magic. But I think it's coming down the line. And I think there'll be a lot to be said for the promotional photos that we look at tomorrow and see if Jack's in them.
Yeah. Nah, they would have been taken ages ago. I wouldn't be and to be honest with you, they probably won't have Jack in them for the simple fact that Jack's been away for the last month. I'd say we'll see Ezri Konsa. I'd say we might even see John McGinn or someone like that. But look, they might have been. Photoshop is a wonderful thing. Photoshop Absolutely. Is a fantastic thing. God knows we need it. God knows we need it the best of times. Let's talk a small bit about potential incomings. Or actually, let's go on to the shirt tomorrow. Have you any ideas? We've seen a couple of mock-ups. I am not a fan of pinstripes or that kind of design of where it looks like, when you cut the grass and you cut in the field, you cut the pitch, and you've got one darker line, you've one lighter line as it goes up. I'm just not a fan of it. I just think it's not needed, especially in an Aston Villa jersey. It only works well, I think, maybe on a jersey that has stripes in it. I don't want to incorporate stripes into our jersey, should I say. Now, am I going to throw a hissy fit and say it's a pile of shit? I won't. I'll buy it. I might even buy 2, because the way I'm putting on weight at the moment, I might need to get an emergency one. So it's yeah. Look, I never get too high or get too low about shirts and things like that. But it is tomorrow, isn't it? Yes, it is actually. They announced
Tomorrow,
it today.
yeah,
14th. Yeah, it does.
No, I genuinely believe it's a big day in the calendar, and it probably becomes a bigger day as the season goes on. When you look at kits that we've launched over the years, just go back a season or two to that green kit. Everyone looked at it and went, "Oh my God, this thing is just an absolute mess, and there's no flow to it or whatever." You know, everybody complained, and yeah,
I loved it. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, I bought it, but you know when I bought it when Jack Grealish stood on the pitch in West Ham with his fingers in his ears, and that's just become an iconic picture in our history. And you know, I've bought a lot of kits for that reason. The black kit this season was just, we just seemed to have all our magic moments in that black kit, so I was buying it. You know, so that's what you do. You go back to stripes. We got to an FA Cup final wearing big, huge, monster stripes in the year 2000. I think I had 2 or 3 of those because I ended up buying one with FA Cup 2000 on one just before the game. So, you know, I've got bags and bags of jerseys, and you know, all the memories flood back when you look at an old jersey. So I think it's important, but I like the understated ones. I like the, you know, my favorite home jersey is the Luke jersey from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And all of the ones other than that are the plain ones that have, you know, claret body, blue short, or blue sleeves, I should say, and, you know, be just simple and stated, you know, that you just know that's an Aston Villa kit.
I'm a huge fan of a collar. I don't know what it is, just that old style collar.
What's your love with Dwight York coming back up again, you see?
Yeah, it could be. Dwight York's one was huge. Like, it was like something Harry Hill would wear, you know, whenever that the collar on that one, and it was as itchy, the collar on that jersey. I did like it, but I suppose actually now that I'm thinking of it, the collar is a specific piece. You know, you don't want to look like looking like a rugby jersey either. So I'm just actually convinced myself that maybe I don't like the collar as much as I thought I did there one moment.
I never liked the collar because you'd always have one bit standing up higher than the other, and it just
the whole look good, feel good, play good thing, is it, Paddy? Yeah, big fan of that. Yeah, so we'll know more about the new shirt anyway tomorrow. I don't imagine the Kappa are going to come out and going to blow the doors off with anything. Last time, it's going to be the last kit for this contract, whether we re-up with Kappa or not, is going to be, I suppose, something that we'll hear over the coming months anyway. But look, they have another shirt to put out tomorrow. I suppose we're going to see what that is going to be. Before we cut off here and before we leave, should I say, I want to just talk 1 or 2 bits and pieces about potential incomings, or in one instance, I think somebody we can draw the line through. He ain't coming, and that's Emil Smith Rowe. Arsenal suffered what you could kind of describe as a shock defeat to Hibs today. The first goal they conceded was an absolute abomination. But they lost 2-1. Emil Smith Rowe actually came and scored the consolation goal for Arsenal. And after the game, Arteta said there isn't a hope in hell. He's leaving. He's staying at Arsenal, and that's it. And it's, you know, it's much ado about nothing. So that's one off the list, I think, Paddy, unless Arteta is
on the other hand, how many times have you heard that and the player sold the week after?
I don't know.
Sometimes you have to weigh up whether the player's heart is in it, or whether it was just agent speak, or whether there even was. And we'll probably never find out whether there was a bid in there.
Yeah.
I always sit in the fence with that kind of a manager statement, because there's so many mitigating factors in what can happen with a transfer, that if the money's right and the player's not happy, you let the player go. That's always been my opinion. So I'm not drawing a line under it just yet.
I think I will. I think I'll draw a line through that. But the other one then is somebody who's, you know, seems to be a lot of momentum behind it. It was first announced maybe about 2.5-3 weeks ago, the Julian Alvarez and River Plate. And we have a video on him, actually, if you guys want to go and watch it. He was murmured, or there was rumors, should I say, and we didn't even talk about Copa America, and we will talk about that before we go, because this can be our nice little segue, as if I meant it. And we didn't talk about preseason either, so that'll be going on too. So Alvarez is there's muted bids in there. There's seems to be talks between representatives in Aston Villa going on South American press at the moment. Alvarez is somebody that I would actually like us to sign. I watched 5 of his games. Majority of the games that I watched, or the pieces that I watched, as I say, I watched them through on almost double speed, because just when you can't listen to the commentary, especially in the Copa Libertadores, when you can't listen to the commentary, you can't understand what's going on in the commentary, I find it really off-putting. So I turned off the sound and watched it in twice the speed until Alvarez got the ball. But he looks to be pretty decent. I like what I've seen from him. He's not going to be the typical player. He's not going to be that rigid player that people would expect to come from the UK. Like, if you're talking about, he's not going to be a number 10, he's not going to be a striker, he's not going to be a right winger. We don't need anybody to play in those positions. I think this guy, and I think if somebody coming in there, I think he's going to be the joker in the pack. He's going to be the wild card. And I don't think even that Dean Smith wants to play with a 10, to be honest with you. I've said this before. Ross Barkley didn't play his best football as a 10. The reason he withdrew into the 10 role was because we were leaking goals, and we weren't playing well when he was out of the team, and he was struggling coming back from injury. But that's completely my hypothesis on it. But do you know anything about Alvarez? Have you heard anything on the grapevine that he might be signing? Anything like that?
Generally, when the South American media make a transfer on make it public knowledge, it tends to happen. So for that reason, I don't see any reason why it won't happen. He, if I urge people to go back and have a look at the video you made, because it was very insightful, and it's well worth a watch or a listen. I think this deal is done. I think it's just a case of crossing the T's and dotting the I's and getting this thing sorted. He just screams out to be the type of player that we're going to sign. He's young, he's vibrant, he's the type of player that we seem to be attracting, a kind of a faster, smaller Bertrand Traore, maybe. There's loads of ways of describing this guy, because in the clips that I've seen, he's done wondrous things. So look, he's probably not if we do sign him, he's probably not a player for this season, but a player that we can mold and grow into a player for us for many seasons to come. And that's where I see him. But he will be in around the first team, obviously, if he signs, and we will see him get cameos here and there. And who knows, with injuries, suspensions, whatever happens, we could see him in there as a permanent fixture. But that's how I see him coming in as a signing. And I think there's a big possibility that one will happen.
I'm exactly the same. I think he's going to be striker / second striker, and people will look at him and look at his physical attributes and say, "Oof, 5'9", 5'9", 5'10" at a massive push if you've a generous tape to measure him with." That's what we're talking about there. But he doesn't play to that size. I actually think, like you as well, I think he'd be blooded in this year. I don't think he'll be a specific first name in the team sheet. I think he'd be someone that we brought in. I think that he probably sits somewhere in as a more attacking and a more vibrant form of like Sanson is going to get his opportunity in around midfield. I don't think he was withdrawn as he was last year. I think he might be played up a small bit further if we are to play with a 10, or if there's a tactical change, I think we might see Sanson in there. But what I'm trying to get at here is, and I know I said that Smith doesn't really want to play as a 10. Smith wants options to change formations and to make things work. And that was one of our biggest problems last year, was we didn't have anything to even change formation. Never mind give Ollie Watkins a break. We had nothing to change the formation. And I think that's what Smith wants, because he sees that the lot of attacks broke down, when we got into that final third. So the more options to keep the defenses guessing and to keep the other dugout guessing as well, I think the better for Smith. As my phrase is, you're better off looking at him than looking for them. You know, so if you get those exciting players, or those players that you think might have that little spark, even if they only play 10, 15 games for their first season, that's better than maybe putting them in a situation like Wesley was, where he was thrown right to the lines, got stick straight away, and then ended up getting injured. And now people are kind of going, well, maybe we don't really even want him at the club anymore.
Yeah.
You know, little bits and pieces like that I think are important. And when we have an opportunity to bring through a potential talent like that, we should take the opportunity if that does come up. So they're the two boys there. Talking about the Copa America, since Alvarez was in the Copa America, I think I'm not going to sit here and say that I saw all the games. I didn't. I saw the final. I saw the semi-final with the penalties. And Emi Martinez is just a boss. He's just an absolute man mountain. And of every single player on that team, he's very hard to look past to see like that. He has this opportunity to go down as a legend. You know, his backstory of 10 years of an apprenticeship at Arsenal, breaking in with Villa, going to the Copa America, being the first Argentinian goalkeeper to win the Golden Glove, the penalty saves, Leo Messi saying that the Argentinian team owe him Emi Martinez everything. Like, Carlsberg don't do Copa Americas for goalkeepers, but they bloody came close to with Emi Martinez.
Yeah. I like this guy's incredible, and it's funny when you look at the reaction of a player who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best three players ever to set foot on the planet in Leo Messi. Just after every game, I didn't see them all, but I saw a good few of them. He just saw them out straight away. He bypassed everybody else, and you could just see. Like, Emi Martinez is a man mountain, but you could see him growing a few inches with how he felt appreciated in that team. Now, if you go back down through the years, there's a lot of goalkeepers cost Argentina tournaments over the years. It's never been a really strong place for them to grow from. So they're going to be dreaming about the World Cup next year, and we've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world at our club. It's absolutely incredible. And I urge people, if you get a chance, go back and have a look at the penalties, preferably with the subtitles, and listen to what he's saying. Normally, that kind of shithouse really annoys me. The shithousery, I should say, really annoys me with goalkeepers. But it was all verbal. There was none of the stuff of walking up to the checking the balls on the spot or any of that. He just got in their mind. He even made someone laugh at one stage, which I thought was incredible, because the minute he laughed, I said, he's missing this penalty. And he did. So I suppose it helped that there was nobody in the stadium, no fans. But he didn't have much to do in the final either. In fairness to him, I don't even think he had a shot to save. I must admit, I was full of beer at that stage at 1 o'clock in the morning watching it, so I don't remember a whole pile of it. But Argentina got one chance, scored it, didn't create a whole lot, didn't conceded many chances, so that was ultimately what cost Brazil the game, I should say. We should mention that Douglas Luiz was there on the other end of it. It seemed very likely that they were saving him for the Olympics, and didn't see much game time. I think, in fact, he only got on for maybe one or two games for a few minutes at either side. I think in one game they brought him on in the 90th minute, which was bizarre. But look, it meant he got an appearance at the Copa America, and good luck to him. But I was rooting for Argentina because it's just, given the fact that we've just spoken about who we're linked with, we saw Emi Buendia arrive at the club yesterday. And then we've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world at our club who just happens to be Argentinian. So I was rooting for them, and they came out with, as you say, they won it, and he came out with the Golden Glove, which is phenomenal.
Absolutely. I wanted Argentina to win as well, because I think it would be an absolute travesty if Leo Messi hung up his boots not having won an international, an international accolade. And you could be right, like that. There isn't going to be a whole lot of that team that are going to say, no, I'm not going to Qatar in a year's time. And it could just be lightning striking at the right time. The Leo Messi wins two. This is a guy who quit international football and was coaxed back. Next thing, he wins two back-to-back in 2 years. and then that for me would certainly cement him as the best player ever. I like, we're not going to get down the road on this at the moment, but when Leo Messi and Ronaldo both hang up their boots, we can debate who's going to be the best of all, who if either of the two of them even deserve to be called the best of all time. But I'll miss watching Leo Messi more than I'll miss watching Ronaldo. Absolutely. And that's just a personal thing for me, and I know other people are saying, no, Ronaldo's way better or whatever. That's absolutely fine. I'll miss watching Messi more than I'll miss watching Ronaldo.
There's one other thing that would make him the best player in the world, and that would be, without a shadow of a doubt, if he followed the other Argentinians and signed for Aston Villa this season.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest with you, he's been ill-advised if he doesn't. He's a free agent. You never know. You never know. He's a free agent at the moment. And considering Barcelona in debt, probably more money than most countries make in GDP in a year. You know, it's fingers crossed. I was going to go into the preseason stuff. It's been announced, but you know what? We've loads of podcasts coming up. We can do that.
We'll have a good look at them, and we'll be back. We'll have team sheet tantrums in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be doing those for the preseason games anyway. You never know. I'm just mad to watch games. I'm mad to watch video games. So you never know. We might even do a live. I say a live watch along, but I feel my skill crawl the second I say it. We'll see. We'll see what the crack is. But no, look, we haven't been on in a while. We haven't had a very good cadence of podcasts over the last few weeks, but we will from here on in. Because look, I suppose as well at the same time, a lot of people will be preoccupied with the Euros as well. And look, we didn't really have anything massive to add to it. You know, it would have been, we would be able to give maybe a different view on it, on Villa players or whatever. But to be honest with you, as you said, life was very, very hectic there during the last 4 or 5 weeks. And we're back now with a bang, and we will be here regularly, if not twice a week. We might even see us 3, 4, 5 times a week. You never know, depending on how things go. But no, listen, thanks very much everybody for watching and for listening. Can I make one last impassioned plea, actually? And I should have done this at the start of the podcast. And Paddy, I'll up your wages, Paddy, if you remind me at the start of the podcast to do this. But we're getting very close to the 1,000 follower mark 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. We're about 854 or 55, I think, at the moment. It would mean the world to us to get to 1,000 just because it was something that we actually hit as a target to hit on YouTube. And we said, we give ourselves 3 or 4 years and surely we get to 1,000 followers. That was in May, I think it was, whenever we started doing the team sheet tantrums, maybe March or April or May, or whenever it was. It probably was around March, and we're nearly there already. And it would just be a huge little personal goal for us. It costs nothing to hit the subscriber button, to be honest with you. So if you could do that, it would be absolutely fantastic. Thanks ever so much for everything you do for the podcast as it is. Really appreciate everything. I heard that there's adverts being played in our podcast somehow. I don't know. Someone's put adverts in our podcast, and you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. So as I said, there must be something. We must be doing something good to say that somebody wants to advertise with us anyway. But look, real thing here, guys, is whoever's advertising with us, we've no idea. But thanks so much everyone for listening. Without you, none of this would be possible. Especially as we go into our 3rd season of doing this for the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. So that's really it, guys. We've gone through an awful lot. I hope that everybody in England starts to feel a small bit better about what happened last weekend. We're onwards towards Aston Villa. Hopefully there'll be a few more signings in the coming weeks to kind of soften the blow. And before you know it, you guys will be back in a full Villa Park roaring on the I was going to say the real lines, not the 3 lines, but I don't want to go down that road. And roaring Villa into victory for another great season. So thanks very much for everything, everybody. And all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.